send y'all spec. And hits that me, that's facts. I'm still coming for a play. When I hear something, then shut up, 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 shut up.
So my last video about the 5 powerful decks on a budget, link up in the top right corner, featured Locust God and Kaikar, which funnily enough are both good gateways into understanding what the rest of this list is going to be like, as they both read like they may be tribal cards, the Locust God focusing on zombies and Kaikar focusing on spirits. But as we found out in the last video, they both work extremely well as Reanimator and Spellslinger builds respectively, so maybe it's not as cut and dry. Some more obvious examples would be something like Camellia being good outside of a squirrel deck, in a food deck, maybe something like Guillaume Masterchef, or something like Chatterfang being good outside of a squirrel deck, in a token deck like Gave Gura Spores, as it just causes all your tokens to enter with that many squirrels, which would feed into any token deck pretty good. Outside of these more obvious examples, I think there are some cards that may get labeled as cards that would go into a certain tribe or a certain strategy, when in reality, they could be extremely strong outside of that in a lot of different builds. And with this video, I wanted to highlight some of those cards for you guys. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe. If you're considering ordering any of the cards you see during the video, consider using my TCG Player affiliate link down in the description and the comments. And let's get into it. A perfect example of a card like this is Intrepid Paleontologist, being a 1 and a green 2/2 that taps for any color, and he also has the ability to pay 2 and exile a card from a graveyard. You may cast dinosaur spells from among cards you exiled with Intrepid Paleontologist. If you cast a spell this way, it enters with a finality counter on it. This card reads as if its mana is used to activate its ability, and its ability is used to exile a dino out of our own graveyard and recur said dino. I mean, sure, it's great in a dino deck for that reason, but something very important here is the card says it exiles a card, not a creature card, from any graveyard. And this card is not only just a mana ramp card, but also a form of removal, filling 2 roles in your deck, which we know is always good for making some space. And if you've got 1 or 2 dinos in the deck, even better. The Myco Tyrant is another card that reads as if it was made for a Sapperling and Fungus deck, being a colorless, a black and a green for a creature whose power and toughness are equal to the number of Fungus and Sapperlings you control. It also creates X 1/1 black funguses at the end of our turn for each time we descended this turn. So for each permanent that went to our graveyard at the end of turn, we get that many funguses. This card suffers from what I call KRS, or Keep Reading Syndrome. I think a lot of people read the second line and went, oh, it's a Sapperling, Fungus, gimmick card. Cool. Next. No. This is a very strong card in any creature-based deck that plans on milling itself or putting any significant amount of permanents in their graveyard, like a Lands Matter deck, like Lord Windgrace will put a lot of lands in your own graveyard. You might as well just be flooding the board with a way to go wide. My Tazri deck loves this thing, as Tazri is going to be milling myself for 5 most turns, making Myco Tyrant a crazy token engine in there. Also, if you're in like an Aristocrat deck that plans on getting death triggers, this not only makes tokens to sack, but also triggers from any non-token creatures we sack to descend out even more fungus, filling this cycle of creatures entering and then being sacked. Siege Gang Commander was originally going to be in this slot, but I replaced it with Siege Gang Lieutenant, the slightly better example. For 3 and a red, we get a 2/2 with Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create 2 1/1 red goblin creatures with haste. Pay 2, sacrifice a goblin. Siege Gang Lieutenant deals 1 damage to any target. Now, this card feels like a goblin card. You have to sack goblins. It makes goblins. It is a goblin. And while it is great in a goblin deck like Krenko, it's also just good in a token-based deck trying to ping people, like let's say Prosh, as having Prosh and this in play will guarantee 2 more tokens to hit play every turn, as well as Siege Gang Lieutenant being a sack outlet that pings, which could trigger any death triggers we already run in the deck, like Blood Artist, to go off. Again, I think this card's super solid, as well as Guide of Souls being super solid. It's a fantastic life gain and energy card, being a single white for a 1/2 that gains us life whenever a creature we control enters, and whenever we attack, we can pay 3 energy to put 2 1/1 counters on a creature and give it flying, and it's an angel in addition to its other types. Now, this one might just be a personal habit, but I have a habit of seeing certain mechanics that have been printed and my eyes glaze over, and energy takes the cake of the worst mechanic I do that with. And when it's life gain energy, when I tell you I wasn't paying attention to this one, I wasn't paying attention to this one. We all know how powerful cards like Soul Sisters can be, which gain us life on creature ETBs, but turning an aggressive creature deck into a deck that can scale its creatures into late game flying angels is extremely potent in something like Kadira as the commander to not only gain a ton of life, but deal a ton of damage. It's easy to read this card and see the energy, the life gain, the angel keyword, and move past it, but this card's really strong in the right list. Moving on to Pack Rat. Pack Rat is an OG card that I think a lot of older players know is a decent card outside of a rat deck, but for newer players, I'm going to say it again. 1 in a black for a rat whose power and toughness is equal to the number of rats you control. Yeah, a rat that scales off other rats. You're not wrong for thinking this is good in a rat deck. Obviously it is. But as I've come to find out, being the resident reanimator player around town, discard outlets are very strong in decks like Scarab God, and on top of that, the reward for discarding is getting a copy of Pack Rat, which makes this card not only incredibly durable, as if someone kills the original, you still have a copy with the same ability on it, but also just a possible win con with how many of these huge rats you can get in play if you can activate this enough times. I'm picking 4 of them up immediately. I'm trying them in all my decks. Let's go to the next one. So Hoffrey Ghost Forge is a card I forget exists every other day, and I'm not even radicalizing that. That's actually being legit. I see this card almost every other day on Scryfall, and I cock my head and go, yeah, that's really good. I need to find a place for that. Being a 3 colorless white and a red 4/3 with spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and has, whenever this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your grave. This guy's just straight up a Boros Reanimator card, which really interests me because it's my least favorite color combination with my favorite strategy. And it just kind of gets clouded by the spirit stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, your spirits get this, your spirits get that, return them as spirits. People are like, oh, it's clearly a spirit card. No, it's just an incredibly powerful reanimator piece in Boros, which I think is a tool that a lot of decks could use. I could definitely see this in something like, I don't know, maybe Caesar Legion's Emperor, to get back the creature you sacked to Caesar, to then sack the token again to Caesar, to then put the card back into your graveyard. Maybe pair that with some reanimation effects to get the creature back into play, and then repeat the cycle again. Seems really nasty. As does Lord Skitter. This is a fantastic example, being 2 in a black for a 3/3. Whenever another rat enters the battlefield under your control, exile up to 1 card from an opponent's graveyard. This is when a lot of people probably stopped reading. They're like, I don't have rats ETBing, graveyard, whatever, next. But it's also got, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 black rat with this creature can't block. A body and graveyard removal on a 3/3 for 3. I like this. This is extremely solid. Cards like Bitter Blossom are good, of course, because you get a 1/1 flying chump blocker. I'm not going to say it's not good because of that, but also because it interacts with sack outlets like Ashnod's Altar and really powerful engines like Skull Clamp, which Lord Skitter also does. This rat could seriously pack a punch in the right deck. Again, this could also go in the Caesar deck as a way to just get guaranteed sacks off Caesar, a form of graveyard removal, a way to flood the board. I think this thing's great. Goblin Assault is one that we're not going to spend a lot of time on, as it fits the same criteria as Lord Skitter, except with goblins and in red, being a 2 in a red enchantment that gives us 1/1 goblins with haste that also have to attack each turn if they're able. This, much like Lord Skitter, just fits the bill of being like a Bitter Blossom type card that interacts really powerfully with sack outlets and with your Ashnod's Altars and your Skull Clamps. Moving on to Zoraline Cosmos Caller. This card is actually the reason I made this video, so if you like the video, you have her to thank. If you don't, Zoraline, I'm sorry. Being 1 colorless, a white and a black for a 3/3 flying vigilance. Already, this girl's got some solid stats. Whenever a bat we control attacks, we gain 1, and whenever Zoraline enters or attacks, you may pay a black and a white and gain 2 life to reanimate a permanent with 3 CMC or less with a finality counter on it. Yeah, wait a second. Wait, hold on. My Sun Titan radar is kind of going off right now. Past just being a great target with Sun Titan, this thing does the same effect as Sun Titan on attack and ETB, just like Sun Titan, meaning this could be a pretty disgusting way to just keep creatures in play in a deck. Maybe something like Alesha Who Smiles at Death could be gross, or any other small CMC matters type deck. Just Zoraline and Sun Titan interacting with each other, Sun Titan being able to get back Zoraline, and then Zoraline being able to get back something else, I think is really good. Definitely something I'm gonna have to try out. And finally, the last card on the list is Captain Engathrod, who is 3 colorless, a black and a blue for a 3/6 horror pirate. With horrors we control have menace. Whenever a horror we control deals combat damage to a player, mill that many cards. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn and put it into the battlefield under your control. Okay, this card. A 3/6 menace, mill on damage, and the ability to rip anything we mill into play is insanely good. As the commander, obviously really good, but I think if you're just in a deck that's trying to like yoink stuff from opponents, a 5-drop 3/6 that mills them 3 and rips anything that you hit is a pretty strong card in that deck, if I'm being honest. I'm gonna probably pick one of these up and try it myself, but with that, if there's any other cards that maybe popped into your brain while you were listening to these examples, please drop a comment and show them to the community, show them to me. If there's enough of them, and I'm sure there will be, I'm sure I'll come across a bunch that I wanted to put into this video. We'll come out with a part 2 for this. If you've been enjoying the content, drop a comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you want to pick up any of these cards you saw today, consider using my TCG Player affiliate link down in the description and the comments. And if you want to show some additional support to the channel, like the people that you're seeing on screen right now, you can go check out the Patreon. The link is in the description and the comments. It starts as low as $1, and you can gain access to having a direct hand in recommending some obscure cards for the weekly obscure card list we do on the channel. So if that sounds interesting, go check that out. And with that, I'm going to get out of your guys' hair, and I'll see you guys next time.